Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Johnny Barton. I am Chief Counsel to the DC Office of Open Government. I want to thank you for taking time to attend this presentation during Ethics Week on best practice recommendations for OMA compliance. This morning, we're going to begin by defining what is a meeting to which best practice recommendations apply. We're going to apply OMM principles using some hypotheticals, and then at the end, we'll take questions and respond to any inquiries that you have. What is a gathering or a meeting that is subject to the Open Meetings Act? And again, before the Open Meetings Act comes into play, it must, in fact, be a gathering as defined under the OMA. OMA meeting in the ladies' room. A quorum of a certain public body consists of 3 members. By chance, with no unlawful intent, 3 members of the public body happen to be in the restroom of a restaurant at the same time. While there, they discuss their respective plans for an upcoming holiday. Member of the public is also present, hears the conversation, and believes this to violate the Open Meetings Act. And to help us to kind of deal with these hypos, I'm going to ask you all, what do you all think? And we'll go through the proposed responses, and I'll ask you all to select one, and then we'll figure out together which is correct. First response A, yes, because a quorum is present. B, no, this was a chance encounter. C, the OMA doesn't address the issue. Or D, no, this was a chance encounter and no public business was discussed. Which of these 4 is the correct answer? Under the OMA, a meeting is a gathering of a quorum of the members of a public body where the members consider, conduct, or advise on public business. Meetings can be informal or formal, and a meeting of the members may be a gathering to take information, testimony, to discuss, deliberate, recommend, or voting. The term meeting, as defined under the OMA, shall not include a chance or social gathering, provided that it is not held to avoid the provisions of the OMA or a press conference. And the correct answer or response is D. This was purely a chance encounter. There was no intent to secretly have a meeting in the ladies' room at the restaurant. They just wound up being there at the same time. And it was a social gathering that they were attending, and they did not intend to evade the OMA. Had they intended to meet there for the purpose of avoiding the provisions of the OMA and did in fact conduct a meeting, then it would have been an illegal act under the OMA. One of the things that we like to do around this year is to ask you to remind your public body members, especially during the holiday season, to not even discuss if they run into each other at a chance meeting or a social gathering, to discuss any public business during those events. Right on time may be too late. Now this sounds like an oxymoron, but right on time may in fact be too late. We all, as district government employees, have to submit our our time bi-weekly. One of the things that I am notorious for doing is waiting till the last minute. I wait till the last minute. I don't know why. I'm trying to get better about doing it. I wait till I get that last reminder, and then I go ahead and submit my time. But what happens if there's a problem with the technology or an issue, and I can't submit my time? Then we have some problems. I've submitted it within the guidelines, but I may have created a problem by waiting too late. So sometimes right on time may be too late. And that's also true with the OMA. Houston, do we have a problem? The public body publishes the notice of its upcoming meeting 2 business days and 48 hours before it is to occur. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. However, the day before the meeting, Mr. Public notifies the public body that the public notice has no proposed agenda, date, location, or time. He and his senior group plan to attend and offer public comment. When told the meeting is 9 a.m. tomorrow, he responds, "That's not enough time for us to organize and get there. I'm calling my council member and the OOG." Now, I ask you all sitting as a judge, what say you? Can this public body meet? Under the OMA, public body must provide 48 hours or 2 business days before the meeting is to occur, whichever is greater. The notice must be posted on the public body's website or the OG central meeting calendar, physically posted in the public body's office or location readily accessible to the public, published in the DC Register, and each meeting notice must include the date, time, location, and planned agenda to be covered by the meeting. I want to add something while we're here. The council on October 4th adopted emergency legislation, which will soon take effect. That's going to allow public bodies to continue to, if they choose to meet remotely, and if they choose to do so under that emergency and soon to be adopted or enacted temporary legislation through December 31st, 2022, public bodies may continue to meet remotely, and the physical posting requirement will be waived, as well as the strict requirements of publishing meeting minutes and recordings. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But each meeting notice shall also include the date, time, location, and planned agenda to be covered at the meeting. Notice the public as early as possible. The OMA clearly states that a public body must provide advance notice of the meeting, and that advance notice has to include a meeting agenda and all the specifics of the time, date, and place. If this is not done pursuant to the statute, any meeting held would be an unlawful meeting. So the correct response would have been that the public body would not be able to meet lawfully under the OMA because adequate notice was not provided to the public. So again, we advise that you notice the public as early as possible. There is some overlooked language in the OMA that is relevant to this, and that's found in the statute, DC Official Code 2-576. Everybody sees the not less than 48 hours or 2 business days, whichever is greater, before a meeting language. But before that, there is language that a public body shall provide notice as early as possible. The phrase, a public body shall provide as much notice to the public as early as possible, precedes the 48 hours or 2 business days, whichever is greater language. However, the former is sometimes overlooked. Take advantage of the additional time and post and publish your notices earlier rather than waiting to the last moment. Again, 48 hours or 2 business days, whichever is greater before the meeting occurs, is lawful, and you can conduct your meeting. But if something were to happen where your notice was defective, then you would not have enough time to correct it if you waited until the 48-hour or 2 business day language, use a 48-hour 2 business day language rather than giving more advance notice. Same problem, different outcome. Public body publishes the notice of its upcoming meeting 9 days before its upcoming meeting. The meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. However, 5 days before the meeting, Mr. Public notifies the public body that his public notice has no proposed agenda, date, location, or time. Now, if this scenario were to arise, no worries, don't sweat it. And the reason why there are no worries and you don't have to sweat it is because you have gone beyond the limited 48 hours or 2 business days by giving 9 business days notice. And on day 5, there's an issue. It gives you enough time to spare to correct any defective notice and to continue on. By providing more than 48 hours and 2 business days notice before the meeting occurs, you build in time in most instances to correct any notice defects and to move forward with your meeting. Under the latter scenario, you're free to meet as planned and as scheduled without violating the OMA and without causing any issues where someone would file a complaint or contact the OOG to complain about the action that was taken. As we discussed earlier, there is a requirement that you publish your notice in the DC Register. So what about that DC Register notice requirement when you don't have enough time to republish? For instance, if you publish in advance in the DC Register and they sent it back to you saying there's something missing or for some reason it's defective and can't be published, then what happens if due to the DC Register submission requirements, it is impossible to timely republish a corrected meeting notice in the DC Register and meet the OMA's 48-hour or 2 business day requirement? That's a good question. How do we deal with such issues? Well, the OOG has opined that in those circumstances where you have filed, where you have submitted a notice to the DC Register timely, and that notice was sent back because it was somehow defective and there was not enough time to resubmit the notice and it appeared timely in the register, the OOG has opined that in limited circumstances where public notice was defective, corrected and timely, physically posted as required, and was timely posted not only on the public body's website or the OOG's central meeting calendar, but also the public body has published in advance its yearly calendar of meetings in the register, but it cannot republish in the DC Register, then it is unpractical to publish in the DC Register. And in this instance, it would not constitute an OMA violation. So if you've done everything that you're supposed to do with regards to publishing in advance, but the sole reason that the sole problem is your DC Register submission was set back, you resubmitted it, but it's clear that it's not going to be timely, then in those instances, the OOG has opined that it would be impracticable to publish in the DC Register and it would not constitute an OMA violation. If you are a public charter school board of trustees or LSAT, a local school advisory team, you don't have to publish in the DC Register regarding board of trustees for public charter school boards. It's codified in the law, DC Official Code 2-5763. The OG has opined that it's not practicable for LSATs to do so because LSATs are not government employees. So they also have a waiver of filing or submitting a notice requirement for the DC Register. However, they are required to also submit their notice to the OOG and to publish it on the OOG Central Meeting Calendar. And that applies only to LSATs and Board of Trustees of Public Charter School. It's the day of a remote meeting or a in-person meeting. The same could hold true. But for this scenario, we'll use a remote meeting. All the meeting notice requirements have been met by the public body. You have a quorum of members who are waiting to dial in to the meeting. The public has been given dial-in instructions as well. They are anxiously waiting for the public body to meet. Everyone is online. The chairperson begins to speak, but there is no sound at all. No one can hear anyone speak. And I have just a personal issue that seems to follow me whenever there is something that has to be done online regarding meetings. So as a practice, as we did this morning with Attorney Asia Stewart Mitchell, we got online early. We found out that there was a little issue that she quickly corrected, and we're able to conduct this remote meeting. One of the things that we advise public bodies to do is do a mic check. Mic check 1, 2, 3. Test the meeting platform near the meeting time to ensure that it is accessible to the public, and not only to the public, but also to members of the public body, so that they can go ahead and conduct their meeting. If it's a case where no one can hear and no one can talk, then it's pretty much impossible to conduct your meeting, and you have a problem that maybe could have been avoided by going a little ahead of the meeting and checking the platform to make sure that everything was okay so that you could go ahead and conduct your meeting. Closed or executive sessions. One of the areas that we also received a lot of questions, inquiries, and complaints, and we've issued a series of advisory opinions on are the proper protocol to enter a closed or an executive session. After finishing business on open agenda items, the board's chair politely states, "This concludes all open session agenda items. Thank you for coming today. I must now respectfully ask the public to leave the room. We are now entering closed session." DC Official Code 2-575B provides that before a meeting or a portion of a meeting may be closed, the public body shall meet in a public session at which a majority of the members of the public body present vote in favor of closure. The presiding officer shall make a statement providing the reason for closure, including citations from subsection B of the OMA, section 2-575, and the subjects to be discussed. A copy of the roll call vote and the statement shall be provided in writing and made available to the public. And going back to the notice requirement, that notice requirement should also contain an intent to enter a closed session. A public body must notify the public in advance in this notice that it's going to enter, that it may enter into a closed session. And it must state on the notice the reason for closure, and the citation from DC Official Code 2-575B. So one of the things that we encourage public bodies to make sure that they do is that when they're putting together their agenda, if they intend to go into a closed or an executive session, to be sure to notice the public of that fact and to list the reason for closure and also the citation from DC Official Code 2-575B. Now, one of the things that you don't have to do, for instance, if you're talking about a personnel matter, you don't have to be specific and say on your notice, we're meeting in a closed session to discuss whether we're going to retain the services of Johnny Barton. You can just say personnel matter. So you can be general when it's necessary to protect confidentiality and to just to be not to violate any kind of personal privacy issues. One of the things that we advise public bodies to do, and the administrative points of contacts or the attorney advisor to the public body, is to prepare a script for the presiding officer to enter into a closed session. Among other things, I've heard, clear the room, we're about to enter a closed session to transition from an open to a closed session. When there's a new chair or a member is chairing the meeting instead of the chair, consider providing them with a script that lists the protocol and requirements to transition from an open to a closed session. We are happy to assist with the preparation of the script or to review a script that you've already prepared to make sure that it complies with the OMA. Preparation of a script for the presiding officer also serves an additional purpose. DC Official Code Section 2-575C2 states that the presiding officer shall make a statement providing the reason for closure, including citations from subsection B of this section and the subjects to be discussed. A copy of the roll call vote and the statement shall be provided in writing and made available to the public. So again, if you have that statement already prepared in advance and a member of the public requests it, you already have the statement that the presiding officer made. The prepared script negates having to prepare one if asked for a copy by the public. Add an additional line. If you are going to be going into a closed or an executive session, the OG recommends the public body have two separate online meeting links. Remember that the public does not have a right to attend a closed session under most circumstances. It's good to have two lines, and Octo, I'm sure, will be able to assist you with that. Remember that a roll call vote for an executive or closed session is needed in a public meeting before closing the meeting to members only. The public meeting must continue for the duration of the closed session, because after the closed session, you're going to come back on the record to the open session. And if there's something that you can report out of the closed session where appropriate, you're going to put that on the public record. This slide was somewhere out of place. That was due to a oversight on my fault. The correct answer to the inquiry was, actually, no, this is a different one. Let me go back. Okay. While meeting in a lawful closed session that was properly publicly noticed solely to train and develop members of a public body and staff, DC Official Code Section 2-575B12, public body chairperson states the need to also discuss specific collective bargaining negotiations pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575. The members concur and the discussion take place. So while the public body is meeting lawfully to discuss one matter in closure that is given the public notice to, they also want to discuss another matter which could be proper, is a proper subject, I should say, to discuss in a closed session, but they had not noticed the public. However, in this scenario, the members concur with the chair and the discussion takes place. What say you? Can the additional matter be discussed during closure? I'll give you a few minutes to think about it. And the correct answer is A, the OMA permits the discussion since it is one of the lawful reasons for entering closure, excuse me, under the statute. B, the OMA doesn't address this issue. C, the OMA provides that a public body may only discuss during closure items properly noticed to the public and that fall under the statute, DC Official Code 2-575B. C is the correct answer. The OMA provides that the public body may only discuss during closure items properly noticed to the public and that fall under DC Official Code 2-575B. So if you're in a closed session and you're discussing an item that had been properly noticed to the public body may not discuss additional matters that are listed under DC Official Code 2-575B in a closed session unless they have properly noticed the public in advance that they're going to enter closure for that reason. DC Official Code 2-5765 mandates that if a meeting or portion of the meeting is to be closed, the notice shall include a statement of intent to close the meeting or any portion of the meeting, including citations to the reasons for closure and a description of the matters to be discussed. Additionally, the subject discussed must fall within the reasons for entering closure under DC Official Code 2-575B. One of the things that we are happy to do when we conduct training or whenever you need some advice regarding Open Meetings Act matters is to contact us. If you have a training coming up with the OG, you can give us a hypothetical as to some issues that you want us to discuss during the meeting, and we will be happy to further address those. GC provides script for public body chair to read. It contains the protocol for transitioning from open to closed session. Agency point of contact tells GC the chair keeps transitioning the closed session the chair's way. APOC tells GC they keep discussing items in closed session that were not on the agenda. OG provides OMA trainings upon request. DC Official Code Section 2-582. It provides a demand coordination with the OG. Shall annually advise all members of public bodies of their responsibilities under the OMA. So we are happy to provide trainings to you. We're mandated to do so under the law. But if there are some situations that you feel are necessary to be discussed, give us the 411 in advance. You can present us with some hypothetical situations, and we are happy to address those and stress those during our trainings. The OG also currently monitors remote meetings. We are also able to provide advice if asked while we are attending. So don't be alarmed if you find us, a member of the Office of Open Government, at your public body remote meeting. Again, we are attending these meetings remotely. We want to be there so that we can help if there are any issues, and that's part of our responsibility to ensure transparency. I want to take this time to thank you all for participating in our discussion and our training in this presentation. I have here the OG contact information, Director Mikel Allen, myself, Sherry DeBerry, Attorney Advisor, Zeta Org, an Attorney Advisor, Nicholas Well, an Attorney Advisor, and Kevon Bridges, our IT Specialist, who can help you with posting and provide you with the credentials you need in order to publish on our central meeting calendar. At this time, I want to ask if there are any questions.
Johnny?
Yes.
You have some questions in the chat. So if you click on the chat in the bottom right and scroll up, you can maybe answer some of those questions while people formulate any new questions that they have.
Okay, bottom right. I can't find the chat on here. Let's see.
Okay, if you're sharing your screen, it might be up at the top. If you hover over the top portion of your screen, the share screen will come down, and then you can click chat from there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you provide a copy of the presentation? Absolutely. Just send me your email address and I'll be happy to provide a copy of the presentation.
We'll also be making all presentations and materials associated with the presentations available on the BEGA website. If you check back early next week, everything should be up there. And there'll be videos of the presentations. It'll be a link to YouTube and all of the PowerPoints and any materials associated with the presentation.
You're welcome. I don't see any other questions.
So let me see if I can read a couple of them. You may have answered some of the earlier ones.
Okay, I think I see it now.
Okay.
Go back. Let's see here. Again, yes, we're going to share a copy of the PowerPoint presentation.
You have one that says, if there are multiple closed sessions, does each one have to be voted on, or can one vote be made for all closed matters?
Okay, and the question is if there are multiple closed sessions. I need a little bit of clarity as to what you mean by multiple closed sessions. If you're having one meeting and you want to go into a closed session to discuss multiple issues that are properly discussed in the closed session, you can have one meeting as long as you publicly notice that you're going to go into a closed session and you list the reasons and the citations from the OMA for going into closure. So I hope that answers the question. You don't have to have multiple closed meetings. You can have a closed meeting in conjunction with an open meeting that discusses multiple reasons in closure that are applicable under the OMA.
All right, let me see if I can find another one. It says, what happens if the board is not aware until they're at the meeting that a closed session is necessary to discuss an exempt topic?
Then unfortunately, they cannot meet lawfully under the OMA because you haven't noticed the public. But I want to present you with a different scenario. If an emergency meeting has to be held, again, if you want to go into a closed session the day of a meeting, you usually can't do that because you haven't properly noticed the public of the intent to go into a closed meeting. But say it's after 48 hours and 2 business days. Say it's a day before and you have to discuss an urgent matter. You can have an emergency meeting as long as you give the public notice at the same time that you give the members of the board notice that you're going to have an emergency meeting. Once you have that emergency meeting, you have to state on the record at the opening of the meeting, the reason for the reason for the emergency, the reason for the emergency meeting, the nature of the emergency, and how public notice was given. So unfortunately, if you don't give advance notice of a closed session to the public, you can't go into a closed session.
And Johnny, this is a question for me. Is it a good best practice to just go ahead and notice the public of closed session all the time, because you know that there are most likely going to be closed session issues to discuss? Or do you have to have concrete exempt matters that you already know in advance that will be discussed in order for you to put a notice of closed session?
Well, that's an excellent question. The law says if you intend, so if there's a possibility, if you may go into a closed session. So as a good practice, it may be good, especially if you're going into closure for the same reason over and over again. It may be good to always have that as part of your notice. Again, you don't have to go into a closed session, but if there's a possibility that you're going to go into a closed session, it's better to have it noticed to the public than not to have it noticed. So yes, you can, and that's an excellent question, Asia.
Okay, great. Next one from the chat. What does GC, APOC, and OOG stand for?
I'm sorry. OOG stands for the Office of Open Government. GC stands for General Counsel, and APOC stands for your administrative point of contact. I should have clarified that when I read the hypothetical.
All right, I'm just scrolling through to see if I can find any more. It says, we are forming a new task force of many agency directors and are conducting business under open meetings. Is there a specific training you offer to new public bodies?
Yes, there is. We do offer specific training, and we'd be happy to conduct a training with you all. Just let us know when it's convenient. Again, you can contact me directly, and we'll be happy to schedule that training.
All right. Next one, can you discuss the below exemption a little more? I think it might have been when you were discussing exemptions possibly for closed session. Hold on one second. Can you discuss the below exemption a little more? What is considered trade secrets, commercial or financial information under the OMA? Trade secrets and commercial or financial information obtained from outside government or public body to the extent that disclosure would result in substantial harm to the competitive position of the person from whom the information was obtained from.
Okay, this is an exemption that I believe applies solely to the governing bodies of public charter school boards, and it is straight out of pretty much straight out of FOIA. So as it is defined under FOIA, it's pretty much defined here. It's a little bit more involved because of a couple court cases and a couple changes in the law. And this question is from Gannett, I believe it is. Yes, from Gannett.
Yeah.
Gannett, I'm happy to discuss it with you offline. It's a little bit more involved than I think we have time for. And anybody else who is a representative of a public charter school board, please contact me and I'll be happy to go in detail with it. But it's a little bit more involved, and this applies solely to Board of Trustees of public charter schools. It's not an exemption that other public bodies can rely on.
Okay, next one. Does public notice always have to mean in the DC Register, or can it be on a public body website?
If you are an LSAT or a board of trustees of a public charter school, you're not going to be able. You can't publish in the DC Register. Number one. Regarding Public Charter School Board of Trustees, the law specifically says that you don't have to publish in the register. Regarding LSATs, the OG has opined for similar reasons, because LSATs are not district government employees. They can't publish in the register. So the requirement is that they also publish on the central meeting calendar. All other public bodies have to meet the DC Register publication requirements. The only exception would be if there's an emergency meeting where you can give less than 48 hours and 2 business days notice, and it's not, practicable or possible to publish in the register. If you have to give a day's notice, then you're not going to be able to publish in the register, of course. So in that instance, you don't have to publish in the register.
Okay, thanks, Johnny. Next one, someone said, can you repeat what APOC means? They said you spoke a little bit fast last time.
I'm sorry, and again, forgive me for not spelling that out when we went over the HIPO. APOC are the administrative points of contacts, or the points of contacts for public bodies. These are the persons who usually publish the notice either on the public body's website or on the central meeting calendar, and who may be responsible for also putting up the meeting minutes or any recordings. So we refer to them as points of contacts or administrative points of contacts, so that we know who to contact in order to either provide assistance or to notify that there may be an issue with a notice, lack of recording that can be corrected timely.
All right. And the director of the Office of Open Government, Director Allen, she chimed in. She said, we have the training video for new board members that I'm presenting at noon. That is currently on our website, open-dc.gov, on the Open Meetings Act page. And I think that was a response to the question about any training for new bodies. And that's it. That's all the questions.
Okay. Again, thank you all for attending the presentation. Thank you, Director Allen, for chiming in, and we appreciate your time. And if you have any further questions, and Gannett, I will be contacting you. You can contact me at your leisure, so that we can discuss the issue that you raised regarding the commercial exemption. And thanks again, everybody. I believe we have another training coming up at 12 o'clock on parliamentary procedure by Nicholas Well, and I encourage you all to attend that as well.